Welcome back to Read This Next with Laura and Nicole from the Thunder Bay Public Library. This week we are not doing the wrap-up lists. We're back into the full swing of it, and we are going to be looking at feminist dystopias. What's that mean, Laura?
Here's where I jump in and explain that that's not really the best title of it. A more accurate way to describe what we're doing is we are looking at dystopias that are engaging with gender roles. So like the one everyone thinks of, right, is The Handmaid's Tale. Yeah. That's kind of the prototype and the one people think of when they think of this kind of story. But it could be something where not all of these are engaging in the same way, where like women are subjugated. There's one or two fun little ones where in some cases men are subjugated, or perhaps not even that they're subjugated, but that there are not men for whatever reason. We'll get there. They're gone in the story. They're just not there anymore. So it really is there. It's in many cases it's using a feminist lens to look at gender roles, to push ideas about gender roles in our current society by creating an imaginary world to play out different scenarios. But yeah, so because I was looking at, we were just calling it feminist dystopia, and I was like, that's not right, because many of them it's not a feminist scenario that they're in a terrible, like patriarchal, misogynist scenario, but there is probably a feminist slant to the writing.
So they're pointing out what's wrong with our current society by using fictional dystopian societies, our society to the extreme.
So it's probably most accurate to think of this as examining gender roles. The episode.
But that's not a catchy title, so
no, it's not a catchy title. But yeah, so that's my opening. That I said I needed to get out.
It's perfect.
Thank you.
We are once again alternating between the two, and I think I get to start this episode. I think
you're green.
Yes,
excellent.
I am. Okay. The first one is The Birthyard, a novel by Mallory Tater. It's her debut novel, which is for readers of The Handmaid's Tale, The Girls. And The Girls. The Birthyard is a gripping story of a young woman's rebellion against the rules that control her body. Now here's the description. Sable Ursu has just turned 18, which means she's ready to breed. Within the confines of her world, a patriarchal cult known as the Den, female fertility and sexuality are wholly controlled by capital M, men. In this season, they may come of age. Sable and her friends, Mamie? I'm not sure.
Whatever you like.
Okay, and Dinah are each paired with a match with the purpose of conceiving a child. Sable is paired with Ambrose, the son of a favored man in the Den. Others are not so lucky. In their second trimester, girls are sent to the birthyard, where they are prepared for giving birth and motherhood, but are also regularly drugged and monitored by their midwives. Sable is unable to ignore her unease about the pills they are forced to swallow and the punishments they receive for stepping out of line. Too many of the girls, including Mamie and Dinah, have secrets, and it's impossible to know whom to trust. When Sable's loyalty is questioned and her safety within the Den is threatened, she must rebel against the only life she has ever known, the only life she has been designed for. Mallory Tater weaves a intricate narrative, equal parts suspense and action, while twisting contemporary social anxieties to dizzying extremes. She meticulously deconstructs the intricate relationships between a womanhood, government, and the female body. A startling and important debut novel. As we already said, echoes Margaret Atwood's, but this is no dystopian world. There is no totalitarian government. The Den exists now. That's exactly what you were talking about with your description.
Yes, exactly what I was talking about, what I was trying to get at. This one has been on my to-read list for a long time, not to say which is not a negative. I'm just saying many of these books on this list I pulled from my personal to read list because I'm this sort of stuff is right up my alley.
Yeah, they
Cults,
sound good.
things like that.
Cults, as we all know.
Love a cult. Love a cult. A cult book.
Yeah, and you also really like Margaret Atwood a lot, right, too?
Sure do. Sure do.
Yeah.
I did read, I recently reread The Handmaid's Tale because I reread, or no, I read for the first time Testaments, which was the sequel that came out a couple years ago now.
With the green.
With the green. And it did hold up, The Handmaid's Tale. And I did enjoy Testaments, but I did, at the end of it, I was like,
Oh.
Margaret. Although, like, if we were really friends, I'd call her Peggy, because I think that's what her friends call her. I'd be like, Peggy, where are the lesbians?
Come on, Peggy.
Come on, Peggy, where are the lesbians? Because I just, in that particular book, there's like this whole like woman-only society. And I was just like,
this just doesn't logically make sense. Where's the lesbians?
Where are the lesbians? I know they're there. You just didn't write about them, but you could have.
That's a structure for another day.
Where are the lesbians? Yeah, so that's my mini review of Testaments.
Good to know.
Yeah. Birthyard, though, sounds really good.
It does.
Sounds really good. Yes. Moving on from my imaginary conversations with published authors. Okay, so this next one has a striking cover.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's not very sneaky.
I don't know if I can show this one on Shaw. I might have to take this one out just because of the cover. Also,
in which case, please do go to the show notes.
Yeah.
And find it there.
Also, there's no title on the front.
Off the shelf. I know, I just noticed that too as I was looking at it.
Yeah. Anyways.
I wonder if I pulled a funny title, a funny cover.
I'll keep looking. Maybe. You can read.
Yeah, maybe I pulled a funny cover. So the book is called The Hill by OBrien. In the near future, a group of girls survive by their own wits and follow the laws of the manual on the hill, a reclaimed garbage dump they call home. The cardinal rule: men and boys spell danger. After a departure ceremony releases the 11 oldest girls back to the mainland, Wren becomes their new leader, and she's desperate to do a good job. So when one of the girls goes missing only a few hours into her new position, Wren makes the fateful decision to leave the hill in search of the girl, only to encounter boys for the first time in her life. Is it a coincidence then that the hill is attacked while she's gone? In order to survive and lead her community, Wren must sort fact from fiction, ally from enemy, and opportunity from threat. The Hill is it says it is a feminist dystopian novel.
There you go.
A feminist dystopian novel that explores gender, power, and the search for truth in a world defined by scarcity, distrust, and gender politics. Gritty and compassionate, Brian's unforgettable novel shines a light on the consequences of consumerism and environmental neglect while reminding us what it takes to be a girl in this world.
Very powerful. These are all going to be very powerful ones, I think.
I think so. Yep.
Interesting.
All right, that's The Hill. And I think pretty much all of the books on this list are like fairly recent, like maybe the oldest is like 5 years old.
Yeah.
So they are all fairly current. of this current as well. Did you find a different cover?
No, actually, that seems to be the cover, which doesn't really make sense because, like we were saying, there's no title or the author on it, so very strange.
Well, it's a surprise, I guess.
Yeah, just the cover grabs your attention. Maybe they didn't feel they needed a title.
You'll know why when you see it.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is The Power by Naomi Alderman. In The Power, the world is a recognizable place. There's a rich Nigerian kid who lounges around the family pool, a foster girl whose religious parents hide their true nature, a local American politician, a tough London girl from a tricky family, period. That sounded like I had more to say.
That's the list.
Yeah, that's it. But something vital has changed, causing their lives to converge with devastating effect. Teenage girls now have immense physical power. They can cause agonizing pain and even death. And with this small twist of nature, the world changes utterly. This extraordinary novel uh, is not only a gripping story of how the world would change if power was in the hands of women, but also exposes with breathtaking daring our contemporary world. That's a cool concept. I would like to read that.
Yes, sounds very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it reminds me just a little bit, although this one wasn't looking at gender roles, but there was a dystopia a couple of years back called The Flame Alphabet. And it was, I think it was like up to 18-ish or whatever, but young children's voices started like they could kill an adult by speaking, like the frequency
Oh,
of their
wow.
voice. Yes. So it's
I wonder how they
quite
figured that out.
interesting. So it's like, you want to obviously be with your children and but they will, and perhaps accidentally, right, depending on how
Mm-hmm.
old they are. Anyway, I'll throw that name in the show notes as well. The Flame
Yeah.
Alphabet. It was quite good.
Yeah, this one sound I'm very curious. There's a lot of ways that it can go. I'm
Yeah,
I'm curious about it. Yeah.
very much so. Next one, another striking cover.
Oh yeah.
You'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
This book is called Red Clocks. It's by Lenny Zumas. 5 Woman, 1 Question. What is a woman for? In this fiercely imaginative novel, abortion is once again illegal in America. In vitro fertilization is banned, and the Personhood Amendment grants rights of life, liberty, and property to every embryo. Not that far off from this
Property?
in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Horrifyingly. In a small Oregon fishing town, 5 very different women navigate these new barriers alongside age-old questions surrounding motherhood, identity, and freedom. Roe, a single high school teacher, is trying to have a baby on her own while also writing a biography of I don't know how to say that, Ivor, a little-known 19th century female polar explorer. Susan
Okay.
is a frustrated mother of 2, trapped in a crumbling marriage. Maddie is the adopted daughter of doting parents and one of Roe's best students, who finds herself pregnant with nowhere to turn. And Jin is the gifted, forest-dwelling homeopath or mentor who brings all their fates together when she's arrested and put on trial in a frenzied modern-day witch hunt.
Okay. Huh.
Mhm.
I'm
Yes.
I'm that last line where it's just like she lives in the forest. It's like,
Well, she's obviously like, the forest abortion lady.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, going
Helping
to
them
the
out.
forest. And
Wow.
yeah.
It sounds very interesting. Very like it's very I don't know how to say it's zeroing in on a specific woman's issue.
Hmm. Yes, which many of these are. Like there's such a connection between reproductive rights and women having control of their own lives.
Mhm.
It's undeniably so linked, and it's undeniable in my opinion that any attack on reproductive rights is also an attack on women.
Oh yeah. I'm
Yeah,
curious why. I mean, red makes sense. Clocks, biological clock?
perhaps,
Yeah.
perhaps. Yeah,
I do like the cover. The colors are very
yeah,
pretty. It's a nice design.
they are.
Mhm.
Hmm.
The next one is The Farm by
Hmm.
Joanne Ramos. I like the cover of this one too. Okay. Nestled in the Hudson Valley is a sumptuous retreat boasting every amenity: organic meals, private fitness trainers, daily massages, and all of it for free. In fact, you get paid big money, more than you've ever dreamed of, to spend a few months in this luxurious locale. The catch: for 9 months, you belong to the farm. You cannot leave the grounds, your every move is monitored. Your former life will seem a world away as you dedicate yourself to the all consuming task of producing the perfect baby for your uber wealthy clients. Jane, an immigrant from the Philippines and a struggling single mother, is thrilled to make it through the highly competitive host selection process at the farm. But now pregnant, fragile, consumed with worry for her own young daughter's well being, Jane grows desperate to reconnect with her life outside. Yet she cannot leave the farm or she will lose the life-changing fee she received on delivery, or worse. Heartbreaking, suspenseful, and provocative, the farm pushes our thinking on motherhood, money, and merit to the extremes and raises crucial questions about the trade-offs women will have to make to fortify their futures and the futures of those they love. Another one where it's like an organization working against
Yeah.
women, or for, I guess it depends on your view of it.
Yeah, interesting. Certainly surrogacy is not uncommon, right? So it's taking it just kind of to, it's not a, it certainly seems like a possible extreme.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like an impossible thing at all in our
Yeah.
present day world.
It's like when I watched Squid Games, I was like, could this happen? And I was like, yes, so could the farm, and I just wouldn't know about it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Our next one is called Gather the Daughters by Jenny Melamed. Okay, so this is another cult one. Years ago, before the country was incinerated to wasteland, 10 men and their families colonized an island off the coast. They built a radical society of ancestor worship, controlled breeding, and the strict rationing of knowledge and history. Only the wanderers, chosen male descendants of the original 10, are allowed to cross to the wastelands, where they scavenge the detritus among the still smoldering fires. The daughters of these men are wives in training. At the first sign of puberty, they face their summer of fruition, a ritualistic season that drags them from adolescence to matrimony. Matrimony. They have children who are children, and when they are no longer useful, they take their final draught and die. But in the summer, the younger children reign supreme. With the adults indoors and the pubescent in fruition, the children live wildly. They fight over food and shelter, free of their father's hands and their mother's despair. And it is at the end of one summer that little Caitlin Jacob sees something so horrifying, so contradictory to the laws of the island, that she must share it with the others. Born leader Janie Solomon steps up to seek the truth. At 17 years old, Janie is so unwilling to become a woman, she is slowly starving herself to death. Trying urgently now to unravel the mysteries of the island and what lies beyond before her own demise, she attempts to lead an uprising of the girls that may be their undoing. It's a smoldering debut, dark and energetic, compulsively readable, and a novel that announces her as an unforgettable new voice in fiction.
Oh, a lot of these are debuts too. Interesting. Born leader Janie Solomon. So she's not the leader of the cult, she's just like the leader of the girls.
She's the leader of the kids.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what she sees. Sometimes these descriptions are so good.
that fruition thing, it reminds me a lot of the YA book, The Grace Year, which was also about a cult in which girls were sent off to live by themselves for a year.
In the bush, right? Like in the forest?
Before they get married by themselves. It's like because you're going into you're going through puberty, so you've got magic seduction skills. We're gonna put you off by yourself in the forest.
We recommended how it turns out. Yeah,
sure did.
But yeah, you were saying about the Grace Year. Sounds good. I mean, we did recommend it in our cults one. Like you said, it's go check that one out. Go check out that episode for more cult goodness.
More cult goodness. And certainly often a part of many of these cult things does tend to tie in with gender roles as well. Because it's about control.
Okay, next one is The Hierarchies by Ross Anderson. Your husband is the reason for your existence. You are here to serve him. You must not harm your husband, nor may you harm any human. Sylvie, which is spelled SYLV_IE, is a synthetic woman, a fully sentient robot designed to cater to her husband's every whim. She lives alone on the top floor of his luxurious home, her existence barely tolerated by his human wife and concealed from their child. Between her husband's visits, deeply curious about the world beyond her room, Sylvie watches the family in the garden, hears them laugh, cry, and argue. Longing to experience more of life, she confides her hopes and fears only to her diary. But are such thoughts allowed? And if not, what might the punishment be? As Sylvie learns more about the world and becomes more aware of her place within it, something shifts inside her. Is she malfunctioning, as her husband thinks, or coming into her own? As their interactions become increasingly fraught, she fears he might send her back to the factory for reprogramming. If that
Mhm.
happens, her hidden diary could be her only link to everything that came before, and the only clue that she's in grave danger. Set in a recognizable near future laced with dark, sly humor, Ross Anderson's deeply observant debut novel is less about the fear of new technology than about humans' age old talent for exploitation. In a world where there are now two classes of women, born and created, the growing friction between them may have far reaching consequences no one could have predicted.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Sounds like a Black Mirror episode.
I was going to say it reminds me of that episode where the
Yeah.
guy has the memory in his head, which we talked
And
about before.
yeah, and there is actually, like, there was a movie that came out this past year that was about an android, an android, only it was a husband.
Oh,
And it was like a romantic comedy. I think it was supposed to be quite good, actually, as I recall. I'll put the name of that in the show notes. I'm sure nobody's heard of it because, like, what movies did anyone hear about in 2021 if they weren't like Marvel?
yeah.
Um, yeah, but I'll put the name of that. It was supposed to be quite good.
You probably also, if you like The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey, this would probably be a good one, which
Yes,
is on my to read list still. I checked it out and didn't have time for it. But
that is a
yeah.
clone book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Variant clones, man. Robots, androids, so interesting.
We also have an episode about that.
We've done it all.
Interesting. The only thing about the description of this book that kind of trips me up a little bit is that bit about I can't remember what term they use, but the friction between
Oh,
like
born and
born
created.
women and created women. It's
Mhm.
like, is that necessarily the most interesting thing here?
Yeah.
Like the woman again, like it would be more interesting to me maybe if the women were like teaming up,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it
But
feels like there's cooler things happening. Well, not, I say cool and like interesting.
yes, like
Yeah.
there is a possibility that would be a more interesting potential. But who knows how it plays out because I have not actually read that one.
Mm-hmm.
So hard to say. So the next one is a YA book. It is called Glory O'Brien's History of the Future. It's by A.S. King. And I don't know, I don't think we've read any A.S. King before, but they are a very, very powerful, very literary YA author worth checking out
Okay.
in general, but this one in particular. Okay, so not to, they're really selling it in this description, in this masterpiece
Oh yeah.
about freedom, feminism, and destiny. Prince Honor author A.S. King tells the epic story of a girl coping with devastating loss at long last, a girl who has no idea that the future needs her and that the present needs her even more. Graduating from high school is a time of limitless possibilities, but not for Glory, who has no plan for what's next. Her mother committed suicide when Glory was only 4 years old, and she's never stopped wondering if she will eventually go the same way, until a transformative night when she begins to experience an astonishing new power to see a person's infinite past and future. From ancient ancestors to many generations forward, Glory is bombarded with visions, and what she sees ahead of her is terrifying. A tyrannical new leader raises an army, women's rights disappear, a violent second civil war breaks out, and young girls vanish daily, sold off or interned in camps. Glory makes it her mission to record everything she sees, hoping her notes will somehow make a difference. She may not see a future for herself, but she'll do anything to make sure this one doesn't come to pass.
Mm. Very reflective of society again. Wow. I'm
Yeah.
curious why she doesn't see a future for herself. If that's just like a part of her
Oh,
powers or if
sorry, you
she's
just froze for a second for me. Say
Oh,
that again.
I was gonna say, I'm curious if the reason she can't see her own future is because of the limit of her powers, or if she doesn't have one. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because
It
why would
was
anybody want to hear that?
it was quite good. I really enjoyed it. I found it very thoughtful.
Hmm.
Um, she A.S. King is interesting because they tend to do sort of magic realism storytelling. So
Okay.
it's not a fantasy, but like she the visions are, it's not, she's not just making things up. She in the story that the visions are accurate. Um, yeah, she's got some really interesting stories. She has one, she has one where like, I think it's like it's just like a building has a track of first person text in the books. So like the characters are hanging out and then also it'll be the building being like, oh, here they come again.
That's cute.
They're kind of sweet together.
It's a third person omniscient to the extreme.
Yeah, yeah. So she does interesting things with structure and storytelling.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, this next one, I was like mixing it up.
Oh, mixing it up. Okay.
Hmm.
So this is Good House. Have you read this one?
No.
No. Okay. By Peyton Marshall. With soaring literary prose, the first time novelist Peyton Marshall imagines a grim and startling
Mhm.
future. Yep. At the end of the 21st century, in a transformed America, the families of convicted felons are tested for a set of genetic markers. Boys who test positive become compulsory wards of the state, removed from their homes and raised on good house campuses, where they learn to reform their darkest thoughts and impulses. Good House is a feral place, part prison, part boarding school, and now a radical religious group. The Holy Redeemer's Church of Purity has begun to target these schools for attack with purifying fire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We see all this through the eyes of James, a transfer student who watched the radicals set fire to his old good house and everyone he'd ever known. In addition to entering a new school with new rules, James now has to contend with Bethany, a wild tech genius with a heart defect who wants to save him and her father, the sinister director of medical studies. So many bad people in this. Soon, however, James realizes that the biggest threat might already be there inside the fortified walls of Good House, partly based on the true story of the 19th century Preston School of Industry and the boys who lived and died in its halls. Good House explores questions of identity and free will and what it means to test the limits of human endurance. What's the Preston School of Industry?
I'm not familiar.
Hmm.
I'm assuming it's like probably some terrible place where they took children marginalized in some way and
Mhm.
probably worked them to death,
Imagine.
because unfortunately that's not
Not unheard of.
unusual,
Yeah.
not unheard of, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so in this one, instead of focusing on young girls or women being controlled in different ways, this one is focusing on young men and boys being controlled in
Mm-hmm.
different ways. um yeah, and it also another terrible thing, but I was like, let's mix it up with a little misandry.
Yep. You
Just
know.
mix it up. Yeah. Once again, it's another novel looking at gender roles, because
Yeah.
there's certainly quite a lot of them.
Yeah,
All right,
there
should
is.
we do our recs now?
Yeah, let's go
Yeah,
into it. You want to do yours first? Because I just read Good House.
sure.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay. So mine is a novel from, oh geez, I was gonna say like, oh, maybe like last year. No, it's probably like 3 years old or more.
2015?
Yeah, okay. That sounds about right. Yeah, okay. So this book is called Vox. It's by Christina Delter. Set in America where half the population has been silenced, Vox is the harrowing, unforgettable story of what one woman will do to protect herself and her daughter. On the day the government decrees that women are no longer allowed to speak more than 100 words daily, Dr. Jean McClellan is in denial. This can't happen here, not in America, not to her. But this is just the beginning. Soon, women can no longer hold jobs. Girls are no longer taught to read or write. Females no longer have a voice. Before, the average person spoke 16,000 words a day, but now women only have 100 to make themselves heard. But this is not the end. For herself, her daughter, and every woman silenced, Jean will reclaim her voice.
Very cool. I
Mhm.
remember, and I checked, it's 2018.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Yeah, so
that,
not that
yeah.
far back,
So
but
pre-pandemic. That's,
pandemic.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading this and just like I cannot imagine 100 words. I've probably spoke more than 100 words this episode.
Uh, Are you joking? We've spoken so much more than
I
100
know.
words this episode.
I have no concept of what 100 words even is.
My only concept is still from when we used to have to write essays, right? And like
Mm,
500 words was one page double spaced.
mhm,
Yeah, so 100 words, that's not very much. Won't
mhm.
get you very far, but yeah, quite good, interesting. And as always, you know, feels more and more real every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
On a lighter note, I will give you my
Yes.
recommendation. So this is Woman World, which is a graphic novel by Aminder Dhaliwal. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'll read you the description. When a birth defect wipes out the planet's entire population of men, Woman World rises out of the society's ashes. Dhaliwal's infectiously funny Instagram comic follows the rebuilding process, tracking a group of women who have rallied together under the flag of Beyonce's thighs. Only
As they
grandma,
should.
as they should. Only grandma remembers the distant past, a civilization of Segway riding mall cops, blockbuster movie rental shops, and that's what she said jokes. For the most part, Woman's World residents are focused on their struggles with unrequited love and anxiety, not to mention the whole survival of humanity thing. It's very cute. I don't know. Have you seen the
I've read pieces of it.
yeah, I read
Yeah.
the entire Instagram thing when I did it and then borrowed the book when it came out. It's
Yeah.
very cute because the grandma often hangs out with like a young child who has no recollection of anything, and the things that they
Right.
find in like the ruins and things sometimes tend to be shops that have men's body parts that nobody has seen in a very long time, or it's silly things like literally their world is mapped out based on like Beyonce, and like they're like, this is Beyonce's arm, this is her other arm, this is her torso, and it's just like it's ridiculous, but it also has like really sweet moments of romance. There's a lot of diversity in it, so there's uh obviously, where's the lesbians, as we were talking about, there are
They're
lesbians,
here.
they're here, they are in Woman World, and yeah, and there's like women who, have had full like double mastectomies and things like that. Like it's very inclusive and it's just very sweet, and it doesn't really look at the men's world in a negative way, but I guess it does because it shows how good it can be in a apocalypse of only women. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cute. I would check it out.
Much more of a light read
Hmm.
than many of the others. But yeah, it sounds fun.
It
Sounds
is.
fun.
Yeah.
I do want to just
Mhm.
acknowledge that many of these books have a very binary,
Mhm.
engage with gender roles in a very binary way
Yes.
between male, female, men, women. And they don't really account for, often there's not really any acknowledgement of trans narratives, and there's not really any acknowledgement of non-binary people.
Mhm.
And that is something that I think we're still waiting to see in this type of book.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
hasn't been really engaged with very much yet. I'm sure that there are some out there, maybe someone, if you have read one that actually like digs into that aspect,
Send us an
then I would
email.
send us an email or comment or whatever, because I would be interested in reading it, certainly. But yeah, that I just want to acknowledge that is something that is missing in these books,
Mhm.
and that you and I both recognize that
Oh yeah.
by skipping those, they're not actually offering an accurate reflection of our world. Um, yeah,
I want to see more non-binary
yeah,
dystopian novels.
yes, yeah. Agreed, right? And I would also, I mean, in a way, I feel like it would be it would be a story of suffering, but many of these are stories of suffering anyway, but of like trans characters in some of these stories, right? Like, yeah. And then the whole, like this whole there's such a coupling of being able to give birth with womanhood, and that's not actually also not accurate
And
for
how would that fit into
reality,
these narratives? Like, that would
right?
be so interesting to see.
Yeah. And but
easy
like,
to
as
do.
again, yeah, but like I feel like it would also, that would also possibly, again, it's just be like narratives of suffering, which is not the kind of stories that but you get, what I'm getting at. It's
You
like
when you're reading a dystopian, you are expecting
you are
stories of
expecting
suffering.
stories of suffering,
Yeah.
but like when there's that, I think it comes back a little bit to that, like when there aren't as many narratives centering trans stories, and then the only ones out there are about suffering, then that is, that's a big problem, right? You don't want that. You don't want the only representation to be like of people suffering.
Yeah, there needs to be something in every genre. We've talked about this
Yeah,
before, and if you're
we sure have.
interested, check it
Yeah,
out on our Pride episodes.
yeah. Yes, we've definitely talked about this before, and the same thing relates for like, many other marginalized groups, right? Like, but anyway, I just wanted us to bring it back to that a little bit at the end, and talk about how that impacts these kind of books, this sort of mini genre of gender role, dystopian, apocalyptic.
I think it's also important to recognize that these stories, I imagine, and I can't say for sure, but I imagine a lot of them center themselves around white women's experience in these apocalypses, dystopians. So also race is not super well addressed in these things, which would have a huge impact as well.
Yeah. I again agreed, very much so. Very much so. So yeah. Basically we're saying there's room for someone to write some really good books.
Yeah, write these books, send us a manuscript, and we will read them and then tell everybody to publish them.
With our massive voice.
Yeah.
And access to the publishing world.
We had 51 people watch or listen to our episodes in November, so
that's pretty
just
good.
one single episode, so it's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And on that note, I'll tell everybody where to find us.
Please do. Please do.
All right, go check out our show notes, www.tbplofftheshelf.com. Follow us, like us, subscribe to us on YouTube at TBPL or on any of your favorite podcast platforms. We have shows every 2 weeks, and we will see you then.
Shows every 2 weeks and a vast archive for you to explore and enjoy.
Yeah, please do. We will see you all in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.